Good evening and welcome to this meeting of the Common Council of the City of Huntington for August 29th at 7 p.m. Prior to the beginning of the business meeting, we'll have an invocation led by Pastor Adam Jones of St. Peter's First Community Church, led by the Pledge of Allegiance, led by Christy McElhaney, or followed by the Pledge of Allegiance led by Christy McElhaney. So those who wish to participate at this time may rise.
Lord God, for those of us here who are followers of you and your Son, Jesus Christ, I ask that you would empower us to live out in your ways, show us the grace and wisdom that we need to bless this country, not for ourselves, but for the common good. I ask that wisdom would be given and granted to all who are here, and that by the love that you have for us, we may love one another and show that love through any legislation that's passed. Now turn our minds and attentions to the ones who are forgotten and marginalized, and bless those who seem to be unblessed. Amen.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. And with that, we will call the business meeting to order, beginning with a roll call. Council members, passing along public feedback, I do want to remind you that when addressing the room, to be sure to lean into your microphones and make sure that they're on so that your voices can be properly captured for the public. So with that, roll call, Christy?
Blumenke.
Present.
Chapman.
Present.
Felton.
Present.
Funk.
Present.
Johnson.
Present.
Marshall.
Present.
Pike.
Present.
Okay. Not aware of any public meetings or hearings for this evening. We'll move on to consideration of minutes from the previous meeting. We have minutes from the August 8th meeting for consideration. Is there a motion to approve those upon reporting?
So moved.
Second.
Motion and second. Further discussion and consideration of the August 8th minutes. Not hearing any at this time, we'll call the question in favor of adoption of the August 8th minutes as submitted. Christy?
Chapman.
Yes.
Felton.
Yes.
Funk.
Yes.
Johnson.
Yes.
Marshall.
Yes.
Pike.
Yes.
Blumenke.
Yes.
Thank you. In addition, we do have minutes from the August 29th executive session for consideration. Is there a motion to receive those as submitted?
So moved.
Second.
Motion and second. Further discussion and consideration of the minutes from the August 29th executive session. Not hearing any at this time, we'll call the question in favor of adoption. Christy?
Felton.
Yes.
Funk.
Yes.
Johnson.
Yes.
Marshall.
Yes.
Pike.
Yes.
Blumenke.
Yes.
Chapman.
Yes.
Thank you. Moving along to reports from committees, boards, or commissions. Charlie?
I have nothing this evening. Thank you.
Okay. Paul?
Nothing here.
Joe?
I don't have anything, Mayor.
Yeah. PJ?
Nothing here.
Todd?
Nothing here.
Seth?
No, sir.
Dave?
No, sir.
Okay. We do have a petition from one of our residents. So at this time, I want to invite Mrs. Courtney Bombrake to come forward. She is our Early Childhood Coalition Coordinator for Huntington County, and she's going to present to you some of the work that she and others in the community have been doing to address this challenge for us. So if you wouldn't mind stating your name and address for the record, and then share a little bit with council for your work.
Yes, Courtney Bonbrake, 745 Charles Street. As the mayor said, some of the work behind childcare has been started, and I just wanted to kind of give an overcap of what I've been working on since July and kind of bring it to light for the issues at hand as a community. So when looking at childcare in Huntington County, we're kind of considered childcare desert. We're in a childcare crisis when we're looking at numbers. So we have a little bit over 1,500 children in need of childcare. And when we're speaking of childcare, we're really looking for high quality childcare, not necessarily a teenage babysitter, a warm body sitting in a room, just making sure the health and safety of a child is taken care of. We want to engage the 0 to 5 age group studies shown that 0 to 5 is the highest brain development occurs during these years. So 90% of the brain is developed during 0 to 5. And we're really wanting to tackle the crisis here and be able to bring about more childcare opportunities that have that high quality to them. So right now we have 9 licensed either in-home or center-based facilities here in Huntington County. And of those 9, only 2 of them are considered high quality. So path to quality is something set up through the state that has different levels with it that addresses health and safety, addresses maybe a curriculum set up for children to follow along, and measures to be recorded and see data through it too. So really, when we're looking at it, only 16% of children in our county are receiving that high quality child care that we're looking to capture all of our children in this age group. So some of the things that I've been focusing on since July, starting this role, is just networking and getting out there and trying to share the message that childcare is really a community effort. So it's not just laying it back on mom and dad or grandparents in a lot of cases here in town, in our county. It's affecting health and wellness for our children further down the road. It's affecting their performance in the school system. It is affecting our businesses and employers where they can't get the workforce that they need because there's no child care for the parents to be able to return to the workforce or even stay in the workforce. I've had some really not awful conversations, just very emotional conversations with parents just in the last month of the struggle, whether they are going to stay employed and provide for their family, or one of them has to leave their workforce and stay at home because they can't find childcare. And it's a story that I hear way too often, and I'm sure some of you have maybe heard or even experienced in yourself. And that's kind of what the coalition is hoping to do, is not only to tackle this with the child care capacity, accessibility, affordability piece, our health and wellness as well, knowing that our children, setting them up for success in 0 to 5 is really contributing to their health and wellness as a functioning adult and a community member as well. The school systems, a big partner with us too. Looking at preschool is another aspect of that high quality and what it looks like to be able to have accessible preschool for all. Economically, we're looking at that pillar too, because we want to have our workforce. We want to get families back to where they both can be working, and then just that community growth piece. So looking at it from that community standpoint, where we know that in order to attract families to come to Huntington, we want a good school system, we want a good parks department, certain things we already know, but childcare is another piece to it as well. We want to be able to have employers tell potential employees, hey, we have a great childcare system, and this is one of the reasons you should come, because not only do you have a great city behind you, you have support for your children as well, and then be able to invite employers to come as well to the new industrial park and set up shop and be able to tell their employees the same thing. So one of the things too that I just am really trying to do, like I said, is just get the word out of what the coalition's mission is trying to accomplish and what I'm trying to accomplish as well. So I appreciate you guys taking the time to listen to me tonight. Are there any questions that I can answer for you? I know I kind of gave a lot. Yes, Todd.
Do you know what the yearly rate for childcare is in our county? Because I know when we had our second kid, it was cheaper for my wife to stay home than it was to pay for 2 kids.
Right. I don't know the yearly rate off the top of my head. I do know that when I was looking at the numbers, the recommendation for the nation is that 7% of the income, your annual income, should only be spent on childcare, and we're at 14%. I don't know the exact numbers, but I do remember looking that we are double that in Huntington County. Anyone else? I can answer any questions.
And by high quality, is it just a certain paperwork they have to fill out? Or is
So-
it, I mean,
Yeah, so,
'cause
no.
that's a pretty loose, high quality, you got
Yep.
a really good person that's maybe not, back in the day, if you weren't licensed, they were said you weren't high quality, but I knew a lot of very high quality.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
what's high quality,
So when
what
we're
are the standards for?
Yeah, so when we're speaking about high quality, we're looking for the path to quality. So path to quality, if you think of Kids Campus is a level 4. So they're nationally accredited, and they have a set curriculum that they follow. That's a research-based, evidence-proven program that engages children in social and emotional development. So I think some of the mindset, and even for myself, being a mom of 3 and shifting into this role, realizing what I perceived as high quality is a little bit different than what some of the new studies are finding. So we're not looking at that worksheet, let's color the A and find an apple and sit at a desk. We're looking for them to be able to socially interact with one another, with an adult, appropriately, have reactions that then we can discuss of, this is not how we handle, we need to handle it in this manner, so that when they're developing, once they get to kindergarten, our kindergarten teachers aren't spending time trying to change or adapt to some of those gaps that we have with emotion and social development, and can focus more on maybe ABCs and reading. So the Path to Quality is a really great program through the state that you apply for, and then they come in and will be like, level 1 is your health and wellness. And then level 2 is you have health and wellness, but then you also have some scheduled, structured day planned out. So it's not just, Grandma Sue is watching my children, but they're just sitting in a room playing all together. Yeah, she's making sure they're safe in the environment, but really looking to engage that developmental piece as well.
So what age does that start at? Like because from 1 to 2, you're basically diapers, right?
Honestly, it starts 0. It starts as in infancy. It's shown that from 0 to 5, the rate of development is so fast, and that 90% of the brain is developed in that time period. So if we are creating gaps in that time, a lot of the studies have shown later on in 3rd, 4th, 5th grade, that's where we start seeing behavioral issues. That's where in adults we see depression and anxiety start peaking up. And I think the reason why we're hearing more about it now is because we are having those studies finally come about from maybe our age, my age group, starting 0 to 5 to now we're mid-adult or mid-30s. Thank you. Those were great questions.
You said Kids Campus is a level 4. Is that level 4 out of 5?
4 out of 4. That's the highest accreditation.
I gotcha.
Yep. Muddy Fee out in Markle is a level 3, and they're working towards a level 4. What's really nice about the Path to Quality as well is if you are a licensed center, you can accept CCDF funding, which are vouchers that parents can utilize so that they can take a break from that financial burden of childcare, which is extremely expensive. If they decide to then apply for Path to Quality, that reimbursement rate increases for the provider as well. Some of the small wins in our region, we're seeing, or for our state really, we're seeing the income limit increased from 127% federal poverty line to 150%. So that opens up to a new class of parents who may not have been able to apply for CCDF, but then also the reimbursement rates are increasing for the providers, trying to bridge that gap of the true cost of care. Because right now, some of the providers aren't even breaking even, and they're being subsidized to keep open.
Further questions by council members? One thing to note for council's benefit, Courtney, thanks for your work on behalf of the coalition. Some of this is a nationwide issue, like many of the things that we're tackling as a community. We are working in cooperation across the region with other communities as well and taking an approach on this. The study that was done for Northeast Indiana demonstrated that there were 9,000 individuals that want to be working in the workforce but are unable to because of that exact calculation of it doesn't make sense for me to go to work because I can't afford childcare. And so as we look at some of the challenges in the workforce for our region and our employers, this is a major piece of the puzzle. So thanks again for your work and for your presentation this evening.
Thank you.
Not being aware of any items under old business, we'll move along to consideration of new business. First item is first reading of ordinance 16C23. Christie?
This ordinance, if adopted, would amend Section 98.41 of the City of Huntington, Indiana's Code of Ordinances concerning the timing of the discharge of consumer fireworks within the city.
Do we have a motion to bring ordinance 16C23 to the floor for consideration?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and second. Further discussion and consideration by council members. Council will be reminded this is based on review of the ordinance and discovering there were a few items that were out of alignment with state code. So this brings us in alignment with the requirements of the State House. It also gives more specificity around the timing of the setting off of fireworks.
So this is basically making us compliant with the state, which we have to be anyway.
Correct. There was a minor change that needed updated in that regard.
Okay.
Not hearing further discussion or consideration by council members, we'll call the question in favor of approval on first reading.
Funk?
Yes.
Johnson?
Yes.
Marshall?
Yes.
Pike?
Yes.
Blumenke?
Yes.
Chapman?
Yes.
Felton?
Yes.
Thank you. Moving on, next item under new business, we have first and final reading of Resolution 5R23. Christie?
Resolution 5R23. This resolution, if adopted, would authorize advance payment of up to $1,400 to Custom Cast Stone to begin the Holly Heights Pillar Cap Rehabilitation Project.
Do we have a motion to open discussion and consideration of the resolution?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and second. With us this evening to provide background is Director Keplinger with assist if needed by Mr. Hartberg.
I'll try to make it easy on Mike. And I'm going to give you guys a little bit of a backstory here. So I'm assuming most all of you are familiar with the Holly Heights pillars. There were 10 of them originally, which dotted the neighborhood, Holly Heights being the first planned neighborhood in the city of Huntington, offering water to the house, sewer to the house, and all those sort of things around 1914. Those pillars that still remain are nearly 100 years old, over 110, almost 110 years old to be exact. And so they've started to show their age. 3 of them have been rebuilt, either through previous efforts of the Historic Review Board or neighborhood volunteers or some combination thereof. And so starting in 2014, the Historic Review Board realized that most of the remaining pillars were in pretty sad condition. And so it was time to act, because if they were to come down, you've got irreplaceable materials and you sort of lose that. The tops of the pillars, each pillar, in addition to the hundreds of bricks that complete the pillar, has 17 individual pieces of terracotta in the top. And so terracotta is a lost art. You'd be hard pressed to find anybody who does terracotta, basically a glazed tile anymore. And so we've identified through a lot of research an alternative material, and it is cast stone. And so I'll pass this around. You guys can check it out. It's somewhat heavy. It is more of a concrete-like product. There is the ability to have it in different colors. This is their natural white, as close as they can get it to that. And this is what those tops will be recreated out of. And I'm going into much more detail than you've asked for, because it is a really neat project, and I think it's an important project for the city. And so Holly Heights being designated on the National Register in 2003. Like I said, we started to deconstruct those, and alongside of the city and the Historic Review Board deconstructing those, the neighbors went to work. And so this is one of those grassroots things that you don't see a whole lot in typical public works projects, even though this by definition qualifies as a public works project. It is for those folks that live on that side of town and a lot of people who recognize the area. It is an emotional project, to say the least. And so those neighbors were able to raise just a little over $12,000, and that money's held in trust at the Community Foundation. And so to wrap all of this up, custom cast stone, for whatever reason, requires a down payment. They've already accepted delivery of our samples, which they'll take to make molds. There's an example of those 17 individual pieces that make up those pillars. And so you've got to make a mold for each one of those. You sacrifice one set of tops in the mold making process because there's no real way to get those to release super clean, and some of them are damaged and things like that. So they'll use those molds then to recreate the other 7 pillars and reconstruct those. So custom cast requires a 10% down payment. Typically that's not an option, but this year the General Assembly passed a new law that in a paperwork process for Christy, which I'm sure she'll love, allows the fiscal body of the municipality to authorize an advance payment in advance for those services being provided. And so, like I said, the street department has delivered those to Westfield, to the custom cast facility. They have them, and before they're going to start 3D scanning them and building the molds and things like that, they want some money down. And so it's about 10% or $1,400 for that project. So all that sort of backstory to ask for your consideration tonight in authorizing Christie to cut a check to Custom Cast Stone for no more than $1,400 for a down payment so that they can begin this project. And I'm happy to answer any questions about anything you've got.
That's baked on.
So
The original ones?
the original ones are glazed.
It's
It's a
baked on.
fire-baked glazed stone. So it's a red brick with a whitewash on it and then a clear glaze. This is the best we can get. And believe me, we've looked at everything from 3D printing to just anything that's out there, and durability and UV protection is a big consideration for something that's exposed to the elements, freeze thaw, things like that.
So are any of the ones that are getting rebuilt use the old, is there any old that could be refurbished, or there's being redone with the redo?
So with the ones that we rebuilt, we kind of cherry picked out the best pieces. We didn't want to throw something that was a piece of material that was fatally flawed, for lack of a better term, and reconstruct with that. We used salvage as much of the original brick as we could, so we're gonna have to get new brick. The brick nowadays isn't the same size, so we've got to kind of scale. And so that's where we come into the problem with using any of the original stuff, because we have to scale the custom cast pieces down to be able to fit that modular brick size. And so I don't believe that we've got enough for a complete one. We've got essentially, we're burning the one with the molds, and there's 2 more that we have in storage, and most of those are in pretty rough shape.
So how many total are being redone then?
7, 3 have already been redone, so we'll have essentially the original 10. And so aside from the work that Custom Cast is, obviously we've got a mason on board, because Custom Cast is just producing the top pieces. That mason, I'm not going to put this kind of money into something without pouring actual good footers and making sure that all the footers for those locations are below the frost line, so we don't have anything with heaving. And so we're going to do it upright, so hopefully they last another 100 years.
I have a question for Mike. I'm on my second house in this neighborhood. Do I need to abstain from this? Or as I'm representing as at large, that's okay?
Yeah, you're right.
Very good.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Further discussion by council members? Not hearing any at this time. We'll call the question in favor of adoption on first and final reading of Resolution 5R23. Christie?
Johnson,
Yes.
Marshall,
Yes.
Pike,
Yes.
Blumenke,
Yes.
Chapman,
Yes.
Felton,
Yes.
Funk.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda is consideration of engagement agreement from Taft regarding PFAS litigation. Is there a motion to open discussion and consideration of the matter?
So moved.
Second.
Motion and second. This, of course, is an item the council's been briefed on in executive session. If council is good with proceeding without further discussion, we'll call the question in favor of moving forward. Are there any questions or discussion from council? Not hearing any at this time, we'll call the question in favor of authorization of the engagement agreement. Christie?
Marshall,
Yes.
Pike. Yes. Blumenke,
Yes.
Chapman.
Yes.
Felton,
Yes.
Funk,
Yes.
Johnson.
Yes.
Thank you. Finally, Christie has an update on some of the budget sheets for council members under miscellaneous. Christie?
Yes, I laid on your desk the fire pension and police pension, the actual numbers. I had to wait for those secretaries to give me the final numbers. I had estimated that is in your green book, and then that, of course, changes the total sheet. So those are replacements for those two departments and the total sheet in your green book for when we talk about the budgets September 12th. Just replace those and you're good to go.
Questions for Christie on the updated budget forms? Any other items for the good of the order?
I saw on Facebook, we have 4 new policemen sworn in today, is that correct?
Yesterday.
Okay. Does that bring us to full force on,
It brings us to our previous full force number, but as council generously and wisely afforded us the ability to hire an additional officer, we are 1 short at this point, and we're looking forward to filling that role. Correct, Chief? Okay. Go ahead, Christie.
Okay, and one more thing, we have just received another opioid settlement, the Janssen Mallinckrodt opioid settlement funds that were distributed, $18,772.78, with $18,494.05 in the restricted portion and $278.73 in the unrestricted portion, and I have since transferred that over to the Community Foundation, the opioid agreement that we have with them in the county. So I just wanted to update you on that, that we received that.
Council members, it's worth noting in regard to the opioid settlement funds that the plan that we adopted, both with the city, our partners at the county, as well as the town of Warren, is a plan that's pretty unique around the state, and there's a number of local governments that are looking at it with a little bit of envy, as they have had a number of folks approach them for lots of great causes, and they're forced to try and choose a favorite child, so to speak, in terms of how to distribute those funds, and it's caused a lot of difficulties in those communities. So kudos on a wise move to appoint a subcommittee in partnership with those other entities that can handle the distribution of those monies for us. Last item of note, do you have a copy in your council packets for this evening, a letter from Senator Mike Braun congratulating the city of Huntington on celebrating our semi subcentennial this year with the 175th. So, not aware of anything else for the good of the order. Is there a motion for adjournment?
Second.
Motion and second. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you, everyone. Have a good evening.